that's I think, one of the most fundamental realities that is often neglected in looking at this whole picture of U.S.-Iran relations.
Yeah, I got to wonder, though, I mean, they've been doing this, as you said, for years and years, and I wonder whether when they go over there to meet with the Saudis, whether they're really trying to get the price lowered or whether they're just saying that in the press releases, and really what they're doing is happily shaking hands on the status quo.
Well, I mean, of course, that's something that's conceivable, that this entire scenario of the conflict with Iran is simply a sideshow or a show for the benefit of the television audience. What they're really concerned is making money for the oil companies. But
you don't have to go that far, though. I mean, you could just say that, within the overall scheme of the war party to try to get us into the war, that, this or that press release on any given day may very well be meant to influence the price,
I suppose, that they're perfectly aware that when they threaten Iran that has an impact on the price, yes. We're getting into a territory here where it's very, very difficult to figure out, what they understand and what they don't understand. Yes, a particular press release that they leak, they don't actually stand up and say, okay, prepare for our bombing of Iran, because that's not in their interest to do that. But clearly, when they talk to particularly, reporters from foreign countries, there is clearly this tendency to strike such a hard line that the message gets out very clearly that we're prepared to go all the way. I was just reading a story in the Australian, which I think you may have carried yesterday. Greg Sheridan, foreign editor of The Australian, interviewed high-ranking Bush administration officials. They all took this very, very hard line. They didn't say specifically that, we're prepared to go to war. Nothing like that. But the message that they conveyed to this guy was that the chances of a U.S. attack on Iran were like 30, I think he said 30 or 40%. So that's the kind of calculus that we have to deal with. In that situation, it's hard to know whether they knowingly calculate somehow that any particular move is going to have a given effect on the oil market.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like when people like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are coming out publicly and really, very frankly, opposing the idea of a war, I don't know. It seems like
frankly,
he's taking the threat very seriously.
That Mike Mullen statement, the most recent one, strikes me as a very interesting indicator. And I think it can be interpreted in two ways, and perhaps those two ways are not inconsistent. One of them being that this is a suggestion of continued military opposition to a strike, which, of course, is comforting on one hand, in that, they're not just sort of sitting on their hands. But on the other hand, they wouldn't be doing that unless they are still very concerned that this administration has not given up the military option at all, that they see evidence that we've talked about, that the plan, if you will, quote unquote, in the Cheney wing of the White House is still intact and still very much of concern to them.
Do you know anything about military preparations for this? I heard Seymour Hersh told Terry Gross on Fresh Air the other day that they've been moving cruise missiles into the region for a long time now, and they've got a whole bunch of them, that kind of thing. But then on that Mother Jones blog entry that I was referring to earlier, I think at least one or two of those people said that they're not ready to, launch any kind of strike as it is right now at all.
On the specifics of the military preparations, I'm certainly not in the league of Cy Hersh in terms of the kinds of military contacts that he has maintained over the years, or at least people who are. I think he's in touch with people who are in touch with people in Pentagon rather than directly with Pentagon people, based on a reading of his pieces. Mm-hmm. But he has a much better fix on the state of that side of things. I think that, as I've said before, the decision has not been made. They are in a stage of certainly continuing and heightening the PSYOP, the psychological operation against Iran. The whole idea of sort of citing the danger of an Israeli attack attack, which has certainly been the dominant feature of the current phase of the administration's policy, is unquestionably of that nature. And therefore, we're not at the stage yet where they are on the verge of an attack. For one thing, as I have repeated many times, I mean, the Petraeus factor has not been put into place yet. I think we have to wait until Petraeus shows up at CENTCOM.
Yeah, well, wasn't he just sworn in the other day? I thought he was just sworn in the other day.
Has he been sworn in already?
I thought so, but I don't know.
Originally it was not supposed to be until August, September. But
well, I'll have to Google it.
If I've missed that, then I apologize to you and your listeners.
No, you're probably right. I was just going off of scant memory here.
I mean, that would be certainly, I would think, would be a major story when he is sitting in place.
Oh, yeah, they'll have pictures of him with all the shiny medals and everything all over here. All right, now, the congressional resolution, what day is this thing expected to pass, or has it already, or what do you know?
Well, the latest that I've heard about this is only slightly encouraging in the sense that it's not going to sail through as it looked like it would last week. With scarcely any discussion whatsoever. There will be a markup in the House Foreign Affairs Committee on this measure. That's the good news. The bad news, however, is that in the markup, there will apparently not be any opportunity to even amend the language of the resolution, which means that it is still on a very, very fast track. On the other hand, there is the possibility, and I predict probably there will be some changes in the wording in the original language of the resolution in the House, which means that there will undoubtedly be in the Senate as well. And that's because of sort of a relatively mild firestorm of criticism of AIPAC for what appears to be, obviously, an act of war being proposed here in the resolution.
Right.
AIPAC has been very much on the defensive, saying, we're not proposing a blockade or an act of war, and citing the fact that the language was carefully chosen so that it wouldn't be, in fact, technically, legally an act of war. I think it's very possible that we'll see some changes in that language to make it even less ostensibly a blockade or an act of war. And exactly what that might be, I'm certainly not able to say. But that's something to really watch.
They would have to really strike out a whole couple of paragraphs to take that out. I mean, the way it reads is just farcical. It says, nothing in here shall be construed to authorize military force. And then the next paragraph says, prevent them somehow, Mr. President, from importing any refined petroleum products.
Right.
Now, how are you going to do that without a Navy?
That, is certainly beyond my ken. I have no idea how they're going to do it. But if there's going to be a change in language, it will happen this week, before the markup in the House Committee on Foreign Affairs next week.
All right. Now, did you see this one yesterday this was 2 days ago. I'm sorry, I had missed this. This was in the Washington Post by Joby Warwick. Ex-agent says CIA ignored Iran facts.
Yes, this is a wonderful story. This is the same agent who had warned the CIA that an important source, a scientist, if I remember correctly, had told them in Iraq that Iraq had given up its weapons of mass destruction. And, of course, they paid no attention to it. They simply said they weren't interested. And now the same CIA agent is said to have warned them that Iran had given up its nuclear weapons-related work as well. This obviously before the work on the NIE last year. And that the CIA had not only not been interested, but they had basically tried to force this agent to stop providing any information along those lines. I mean, it's quite an astonishing illustration of the basic dynamic that had operated within the CIA and the intelligence agencies more generally, to ensure that the intelligence that was going into the White House and was being used as the basis for regular analysis and reporting